Think of all that there is in modern culture, it's no more than 10,000 years. That's only 500 generations. That's trivial in terms of the shaping of your genes and your hormones, your whole biological chassis. So in that sense, Ian, we are cheating that kind of death. People died quickly, or I should say they died early, not quickly, painfully. And, you know, we've already beaten that. It used to be the average male died over 100 years ago in his 40s. Right. Now it's closer to 80. Yeah. Now, what's the upper bound on that? Maybe 120?
You think?
The current system. Well, that's a lot of the theories are. Maybe if we don't make some changes, which I think we will, to the genome, and the reason is, by the way, the genome, it's encoded in DNA. That's just a piece of information. And in principle, you can program that like any other piece of software. And then with a variety of proposed techniques, maybe alter that and regrow yourself a body or a third arm or whatever it happens to be. But until that kind of thing happens, it looks like our, quote, envelope is 120 years.
So this is why it's funny when we look at the Constitution and we say, well, they wanted wise older people at age 35 to be senators or whatever, but our president who had to be, and that was considered to be old age in many ways, and that's even when we use the term middle age. Somebody referred to in one of my classes last year as somebody who was 36 was middle age, and they just simply took, you know, the life expectancy that they perceived and then divided it by 2.
That's right. So you make that key point. It's not just fuzzy, which means ambiguous boundaries, but it's also time-varying, what we call non-stationary. That does evolve with time.
Yeah. So although we say middle age when we're talking about 55, kind of roughly, we say, oh, that person is entering into middle age, then that would make sense. Then your number of 120 actually gets pretty reasonable, because that would become the new official middle age. It wouldn't be, right?
I mean, it's just that, you know, there's so many things that work against you. For example, one estimate on what would happen to the human lifespan if you wiped out all cancer. And the probability that you get cancer is something like 1 in 4 in your lifetime, if not higher. It's only like 2 or 3 years to get extended to your life. So I think the bigger problem is cardiovascular. And that's why I think you're seeing studies like I just reported, the one from Harvard and others, that just by improving your diet, exercising more, getting away from the processed food that's exploded since World War II, you can add somewhat, but there's still some really tight genetic constraints. Well, we're at the end. It's like taking one of the Model T cars from 100 years ago. See, just how fast can we go if we keep souping it up? You know, there's a limit to that. At some point, you have to change structurally the design.
Right. And so our design, though, is something which we inherited, right? We can't redesign an entire human, perhaps, although when you're saying the genome, to what extent can we redesign the chassis, other than, say, growing an extra arm in case you need one later on, or something like that? What more could we be doing, do you think, just even starting in infancy, where we go, well, we're going to go in and whereas now we think about the palette of the shots that we give a child in order to make their, you know, to reduce the. What are you saying, that there could be some standard kind of thing that we could do to adjust a baby's life by making what bigger, what smaller? How would that work?
Well, a couple things here. So first, let me just say that if we could view your genome as, just bear with me here mathematically, as a dot on a sheet of paper. The sheet of paper would be the set of all possible genomes. On that sheet then, all human genomes, the current estimate, there have been 108 billion, maybe 110 humans who have walked the earth. When you and I were born in 1960, there were 3 billion. Now there's almost 9. And I think it was 1805 until we got to 1 billion. That's not a lot of people. But you take 110 billion, all those genomes, and it is a tiny, tiny, minuscule dot on that sheet of paper. If you divide it by the whole sheet of paper, it's essentially 0. So what that says is, even close to the dot of all lived human genomes, you can make slight variations just due to noise, and you would not recognize it. It would still be human, let alone further away in genome space. So that's the first point to understand. The combinatorial complexity of the human genome is truly staggering. It's beyond cosmological. It's so vast, it's hard to get a sense around that kind of a number. So there's a lot to play with. Second, I just got a patent, on something you see on my website called quantum annealing. And actually what the patent was a way to improve quantum annealing with noise boosting. And what this is about is trying to find low-cost solutions to problems with lots of variables. Modifying the genome is a grand example. But just making something like beer, you've got several ingredients, or the new design of a 747 or 7X7, whatever it's going to be, airplane, there's hundreds of thousands of variables, maybe millions of variables. So you can view the way we search those surfaces, whether it's called machine learning or formal optimization, as kind of looking at a vast egg carton, but irregular sized egg wells. And we're trying to get to, ideally the smallest, but just to a reasonably small one. And the way we've done that to date is, in effect, shaking that egg carton, put a marble in it, kind of shake it. So in a thermal way, the shaking corresponds to heat, very much like you would heat up metal, and then cool it very slowly to a low energy or crystalline state, like making a samurai sword does that. So that has a lot of advantages, but it's very slow. The idea of quantum annealing is brilliant. It uses quantum tunneling or burrowing. Rather than to shake the marble, in some sense, burrows through those egg wells and finds, if not the lowest, a very low one. So if you can come up with a set of criteria for your child before you have the child, then in principle, for example, health, reduce the various genes involved in cancer. By the way, why do we have such genes? Again, this antagonistic pleiotropy. Because where we come from is not just a... of the ancient, so many hundreds of millions of years ago and beyond, where the most important thing, once we had a cell, was to keep making copies of the cell. And we've had kind of a devil's bargain with that property, and it continues in the form of, so far as we know, in the form of cancer. But you probably want to cut that back and do other things. And if you were to do that, then maybe if you could search long enough with enough quantum supercomputers, all of which will be available, then you could find some really good, healthy, beautiful genomes for babies. The other thing, Ian, if you take this view that you and I are just dots on the genome sheet, then what you are, in effect, the average between mom and dad dot. And there's no reason, once you have that, by the way, that you couldn't have more than two parents. So you mentioned how words change. The word infant, I think, is going to change in a dramatic way. I can easily see, it's not hard to envision, and I talked about this in the book Cool Earth, the novel Cool Earth, where this has already happened, violations of copyright and other law. You could have parents saying, gee, I'd sure like to add a tiny dose off the black market of Tom Cruise's genome, or whoever the celebrity of the day happens to be. Right. So you could have a child with three parents, and technically the British Parliament has already allowed in a very special case something like that. But you could have, it'd be an odd thing, but you could have the true average American child, which takes the statistical average of everybody's current living genome, and God forbid you get a result, but there it would be. So that opens a lot of doors. And well before that happens is the curing of a lot of diseases and other things, and the replacement of those parts.
Well, in some ways, wouldn't we say that there are, whenever we give somebody a factory-made antibiotic or something which is originally derived from some other cells somewhere,
And I should point out that there's been a lot of problems, obviously, with those vaccines, and a lot of good things about them, too. But that opens itself the door, these lipid nanoparticles that many of us got injected with, to targeted anti-cancer therapies. And the other one, you mentioned the article in Wired, which was talking about senolytics And what senolytics is about is killing zombie cells. Zombie cells are cells that no longer divide in a healthy, regular way, and they don't die off. And so they just kind of hang around. They often have 2 or 3 nuclei in them, and they tend to attract, as you get older, they may have a purpose when you're younger, they tend to attract a lot of inflammation. And in mouse and other studies, if you can remove and kill basically some of the zombies, kind of like one of those zombie movies, if you can do that, the mouse lives longer, healthier characteristics, and diet seems to be part of that. Senolytics, a lot of this work, incidentally, if you're interested, comes out of the Mayo Clinic, Dr. James Kirkland in particular. But so I saw one study I believe he was involved with. They just looked at a lot of phenols that you could eat, a lot of healthy greens and berries, and which one kills the most of these zombie cells. And it was kind of a toss-up, as I recall, between quercetin, which is very common in green leafy vegetables, quercus from oak, and physatin, which gives the strawberries its redness. But there's many other things they're doing. It's a massive amount of patent warfare, I should point out there, throughout the anti-aging industry. But it looks like if you can knock out as you age some of those cells, those zombie cells, those senescent cells, then with whatever the senolytic technique, then so much the better. But it's still just slowing down what Darwin gave us. And again, it looks like your outer bound is 120 years.
Okay. So the best case scenario for somebody like a Jeff Bezos would still be 120 years, which isn't all that different from, say, some of those, fabled Civil War veterans that lived to be 117, or some woman,
right?
Who drank. They always say, she had 1 glass of whiskey every day, and she lived to be 115.
Yeah, which is interesting. And you can hear one of those old Civil War vets. You can on YouTube. It's interesting to hear how they spoke in those. I think it was in 1940s. The gentleman was recorded. I think the Bezos case and many others will change. I'm just talking about diet and exercise with their bodies.
Right.
But if you can replace your parts, and I mean in particular your vascular tree, your heart, things like that. As inevitably that's coming. Again, a tremendous amount of research on this. I use the term patent warfare because I think that's where these battles are in intellectual property. But if you can do that, and I think you can do well beyond 120. Just as one example, again, in my book, Cool Earth, which is how things can go terribly wrong if we try to move the Earth-Moon system a little bit away from the sun to cool it. You could also move it back in an ice age. There's a technical mechanism for doing that. Works in theory, can go wrong. By that point, I think a lot of people will have what I call nano blood, a little bit of artificial blood, because right now if you have a heart attack outside of the hospital, your odds of surviving are not very good. And even if you have it in the hospital, they're not very good. The damage to it, the brain just can't go really more than 5 minutes. But if you had some synthetic blood that allowed the oxygen transport and the related things, many proposals for that, then maybe you could sit on the bottom of a swimming pool for a couple, 3 hours and survive at least those kinds of catastrophes.
Right.
By the way, in the novel, what happens? You explore how things go wrong in a book like that. What happens is some young kids have it, and this is an end of the world. It's a very tough scenario. A warning if you're going to read that. And it's what I call a zombie death, because it's one thing to die in a hospital. It's very different when this happens outdoors, and it can take all too long for that to happen. But if you could change that, improve your vascular tree, lots of people proposing different therapeutics to do that now. But the real thing is going to be take some of Ian's genes and grow a separate heart over here and transplant it, or maybe better, with some kind of gene replacement therapy, is work out the genes we want for your new improved heart, and then you sniff something in a canister with maybe a lot of hollowed out viruses that have the new genome, just the part modified though for your new heart. And maybe then as your heart cells start to replicate every few months, that they replicate, creating the newer, improved Ian heart cells than the old ones. Right. Without even realizing it, you wake up a year later and you've got a new heart. Now, if you can do something like that with gene replacement therapy, you can go a lot better than 120 years.
But that doesn't seem that expensive, which that doesn't seem like it would be only the realm of ability.
That's right. Just like I had a phone malfunction. I'm speaking on a new Apple phone right now. It was an AR-14 chip in an incredible processor chip. I mean, this sort of thing would have been inconceivable even 30 years ago. You would think it would have been in the realm of a billionaire, and it would have been a chip the size of this room I'm in right now versus something that fits handily inside of a base. wallet. So I think this will be quite affordable. And I think as the prospect of this occurs, there are many problems. We can get to those. But one benefit, and I think it's an important one, with the prospect of a longer life for everybody, not just the rich guys, and they will be first. And I know a lot of them are working on this very hard right now. But one benefit is we won't treat the planet like a rental car, which is what I think we all tend to do. I mean, after all, most people don't even have a will. And a denial of death and a short death and, oh, what's it matter, I'm dying anyway, sort of thing. If you think you're going to live, have a reasonable shot in 200-300 years without having to come back to a resurrection process, I think you're going to be a little more responsible. And we're dumping millions of tons of plastic into the ocean each year. Sure. I think it's a more immediate threat, global warming, which is itself a threat. There's so many others that we do that I think is because of our old Darwinian time horizon. We're going to expand that.
So this makes a great argument for sustainability, obviously. Yeah. And you hint at something which I want to get to next then. Largely discredited, social Darwinism, which was used for horrible justifications. But let's talk about the haves and the have-nots. If you're going to have a society where only the rich can afford this type of treatment, what would that be like? And then wonder whether it's like for Japan. What if somebody like in Japan, they just decided everybody gets this? What happens to the balance of nature when some countries who already have large populations have large populations that never get old? Next on Coast to Coast AM, this is Ian Funham.
Binge listen this and all your artist stations, plus any song from our library of millions of songs, all ad-free. Get your free 30-day trial of iHeartRadio All Access. You'll love it. Don't be basic, be extra. Start your free 30-day trial of iHeartRadio All Access now.
Imagine being debt-free. Imagine all that stress and anxiety going away. Feel that weight being lifted? That's what Happy Money is all about. Personal loans, low fixed rates, and your best interests at heart. Make space for your dreams to grow again. Apply today at happymoney.com. Happy Money. Fund your happy. NMLS ID number 1396805. Not all applicants may qualify. Loans are not offered in Massachusetts and Nevada. Happy Money works with lenders who originate the loans. Additional terms, conditions, and eligibility requirements may apply.
Hello, beautiful. I'm Amy Eric, founder of Madison Reed, a hair color company I named after my daughter. I started Madison Reed to give you the most gorgeous hair color made with ingredients you could feel good about. Are you tired of drugstore hair color? Upgrade to salon quality hair color that nourishes and improves the condition of your hair without any harsh odors. It's easily done at home and we deliver it to your door. Plus, our hair color matching technology makes picking the right color easy, fast, and accurate. For a limited time, new clients get 15% off plus free shipping on your first online order. Visit madison-reed.com/offer. Take our online color quiz to find your perfect shade. That's madison-reed.com/offer. Try it. Love it. That's the beauty of Madison Reed.
I wanted to know why some people who get COVID-19 get it so bad. I found out it may be because they have a high risk factor, such as heart disease, diabetes, being overweight, smoking, and asthma. Even if symptoms feel mild, these factors can increase your risk of COVID-19 turning severe. So if you're at high risk and test positive, there are things you can do. Asking your healthcare provider if an authorized oral treatment is right for you. Learn about an option at COVID19.com. This message is sponsored by Pfizer.
Another investigation is looming. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. The White House says several additional pages of classified documents were found in President Biden's Delaware home and former office in Washington. The White House says it's cooperating with the Justice Department's probe by a special counsel. Texas Republican Congressman Michael Cloud tells Fox Report with John Scott that an investigation from House Republicans is likely.
This is about restoring trust in the American people's trust in their government. They need to know that whether you agree or disagree that the federal government's going to be going after what is true and what is right, and that justice will prevail regardless of what your political affiliation is.
President Biden says he's surprised about the discovery of the classified materials and claims he doesn't know what's in them. The documents were found 6 days before the midterms. A Yeti Airlines plane airport, killing at least 32 people. The passenger plane had 72 on board. Storms are once again wreaking havoc on California, causing power outages as well as making travel dangerous. More storms are expected into early next week. Parts of counties north and south of San Francisco Bay receiving flood warnings. A backcountry avalanche warning in effect for central Sierra Nevada, including the greater Lake Tahoe area. China experiencing a major health crisis. Fox's Ashley Strohmeyer has more.
New reports from that nation reveal since early December, there have been nearly 60,000 COVID-related deaths. The National Health Commission says those deaths occurred in hospitals, which leaves open the possibility people may have died at home.
Beijing had previously halted reporting deaths following a surge of COVID cases in October. America is listening to Fox News.
Fox News Sunday has a new voice, and her name is Shannon Bream.
I've spent more than 20 years covering stories that matter to Americans.
Variety says Shannon Bream launches a new era.
Curious, tenacious, always after the story. On this show, we'll get to the issues and remind people in this town they work for you.
Forbes says Bream's already making the show her own. See what everyone is talking about. Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream.
I know you've got some questions, America, so let's get some answers.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network, Fox News Rewind Financial Crisis 08.
This is an extraordinary period for America's economy.
A look back at the biggest financial crisis since the Great Depression.
The market is not functioning properly.
And the events leading up to it from the people who were there.
You started to see the Dow plunge in synchronicity with the vote on the House floor.
Subscribe now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Never, ever 100% trust Wall Street.
Republican New York Congressman George Santos facing another accusation. The Wall Street Journal reporting he once raised money for a company involved in a Ponzi scheme. Fox's Jessica Stone reports.
According to the Wall Street Journal, Santos persuaded at least one person to invest 6 figures into a Florida-based company called Harbor City Capital. In 2021, the Securities and Exchange Commission called that company, quote, a Ponzi scheme. Santos faces multiple investigations by the government, including one by the House Ethics Committee. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said last week there are security concerns around Santos.
I don't see any way that he's going to have top secret. If you're referring to George Santos, he's got a long way to go to earn trust.
Santos has refused to step down despite calls for his resignation by fellow Republicans.
One of the 2 caregivers arrested in connection with the disappearance of 4-year-old Athena Brownfield facing an additional felony charge. Victor Park with Fox TV affiliate KOKH in Oklahoma City reports from Caddo County.
Ivan Adams, the husband of the other woman who's here at this jail, he's in Phoenix right now in jail over there. He is facing murder, first-degree murder charges, along with child neglect charges. What we know so far is that Phoenix police arrested the 36-year-old Ivan Adams. Court documents show he was arrested for being a fugitive from justice. It appears he has some sort of military experience. Now, we also know that Elisa Adams is facing child neglect charges here in Caddo County.
Athena was reported missing Tuesday after a postal carrier found her 5-year-old sister wandering around alone. 28-year-old Miss USA Arbany Gabriel of Houston, Texas, winning the 71st Miss Universe title Saturday. The pageant was held in New Orleans. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Binge listen this and all your artist stations, plus any song from our library of millions of songs, all ad-free. Get your free 30-day trial of iHeartRadio All Access. You'll love it. Don't be basic, be extra. Start your free 30-day trial of iHeartRadio All Access now.
Money can be a tool for happiness, like